We're looking at very late, deep flyer options at the wide receiver position. These are guys you can pick up pretty much in the last round or last couple rounds of your draft. Steph, which names do you like in that very, very deep area, like wide receiver 60 plus this season?
Yes, these are our deep shots pretty much. John Ross was very high for me as the deep shot name. Like if we put all these guys into a tier, he was probably the guy that I'm taking with my last pick if I'm going wide receiver there and want to take that upside shot. But there's been some concerns with him. He's not with the team right now. He's not with them at camp. He was placed on the COVID IR list, so that's something to monitor. And with the injury concerns that are already there with Ross, kind of moved him down. I've already talked about Randall Cobb, another guy like really late that's dirt cheap and could actually end up being the one on this offense as like a safety valve for Deshaun Watson. So I'll throw a crazy one out there. It's Breshad Perriman. We've talked about him all offseason, it feels like. And it's at the point now that we can't keep ignoring him. And the case we made for him is pretty simple. He's the last guy on the board that could feasibly be a starting weekly alpha wide receiver from day one with Denzel Mims reportedly going to miss time with a hamstring injury. The report from Roto World says Jets coach Adam Gase said second-round wide receiver Denzel Mims injured his hamstring while running routes in practice. Mims' injury is reportedly, quote, more serious as he remains without a timetable for return. Gase even hinted on adding a veteran in the meantime if possible. At this rate, the rookie remains undraftable. And so, bottom line here, Perriman's the guy. If we know Jamison Crowder is going to be the PPR receptions guy. But Breshad Perriman could be the field stretcher, hey, we're in the red zone, we're going to throw it up for a guy on a corner out and get 2 feet in. I feel like that's Breshad Perriman right now. So I know the Gase goo is there, and that's going to scare everybody away. But that's why you're getting him where
tough.
you are.
That's the one thing against Perriman is Adam Gase.
So if it's not Crowder, if it's not Chris Herndon, then it's Breshad Perriman. And so I don't mind taking the shot there. I love the cheap value on here. Perriman right now going as the wide receiver 63 with his ADP.
Yeah, and I mean, Perriman, they signed him this offseason to a decent deal. It's 1 year, but $6.5 million at the wide receiver spot. It's not anything to scoff at. So kind of a prove-it deal in New York to say, hey, is that breakout you had at the end of the season in Tampa Bay real, or was it just Jameis Winston chucking the ball down the field as far as he can? But I don't mind it. I mean, Breshad Perriman's a guy who I've been kind of, not hot or cold on. I think we were both a little bit hotter on him earlier in the offseason, but I'm glad to hear that you're kind of picking up some steam with Breshad again. And with Mims being out, I think that was one of the biggest concerns is that alpha wide receiver one on the outside going to be Denzel Mims, or is it going to be Breshad Perriman? And Mims being a rookie already in a weird offseason, I think it's pretty safe to say that Perriman's going to have a lock on that job. But with my first guy, I'm going to throw out James Washington for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now he's going as the wide receiver 74. I picked him up in the last round in plenty of drafts, and I think I'd rather take James Washington at wide receiver 74 than Deontay Johnson at wide receiver 39 or Juju at wide receiver 11. Value-wise, I know it's like free, so it's it's hard to miss out on that value. But yeah, to me, I like his value more than the other two Steelers wide receivers. If I'm going to take a chance on one of them with this Steelers offense rebounding, it's going to be James Washington. He actually led the Steelers in receiving yards last season. People don't realize that. It was a weird year without Big Ben, but he played 68% of snaps and had more receiving yards than Deontay Johnson. And no one talked about James Washington at all last season. His average depth of target was 5th in the NFL of all players with 50 or more targets. So he's getting down the field. And this was all on a team that was 31st in pass yards per game last season. So there's nowhere to go but up. Big Ben in 2018 had this team at 2nd in pass yards per game. So we know Big Ben's not going to throw it 689 times or whatever he did in 2018. But safe to say that this pass offense is, one, going to be more efficient, and two, the volume is also going to come up. So when I look at the offense as well, Big Ben is coming back, and James Washington has a year of experience with Big Ben. Chase Claypool coming in as a rookie has never played with Big Ben. Deontay Johnson, as a rookie last season, really didn't get any time with Big Ben because he barely got snaps until week 4 or 5 when Big Ben was already hurt. So Washington has a little bit more of a rapport with him than some of the other guys. So I'm going to take my shot on James Washington late. I'm going to see what happens week 1 and 2. If he's the one getting snaps, if he's the one getting targets, as that Antonio Brown replacement. Not saying anyone's going to be Antonio Brown, but someone's going to have to get some of that volume. If James Washington ends up being the primary guy, I think he's a pretty good value here at the end of drafts. Could be a flex play and actually maybe get into wide receiver 2 range if he ends up taking a really big hold of that spot.
I think he's the 3 as it stands right now, but there's some worries for him with Chase Claypool, but for the price that you're getting Washington at, why not pick him up if he's not on the field? If Claypool's out there, if for whatever reason he's just not getting target volume, then drop James Washington, pick up somebody else. But I do like that as a preemptive stash, beat the waiver wire type of pick with James Washington.
Exactly. And James Washington was a second-round pick just a couple seasons ago, so the draft capital was there, and he really hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity because that first year, AB and Juju were both there, and they just soaked up everything Big Ben had to offer. And then last season, like I said, he was fairly productive in a terrible situation. So James Washington, keep your eye out because he's not getting the hype right now, but there's a pretty good chance that he's out there week 1. And again, if he's not and it's Deontay Johnson, I'll cut him. No problem.
Here's the thing with Chase Claypool. This man looks like a machine. He has 25 pounds, 6 inches, and a faster 40-yard dash time compared to James Washington. So that's where the concerns come in from a measurable standpoint. Claypool will be an interesting one to watch. I'm excited to see what he can do. I feel like he's probably the most boom-bust profile guy out of all the rookie wide receivers this year. But my second deep shot name that I want to bring up, and he's been one that I've grabbed actually more often here over the last couple of weeks, and it's Parris Campbell. Right now, ADP is the wide receiver 70. Parris Campbell, for those of you who don't know, he's a second-year wide receiver in Indianapolis. I'm sure, Alex, this is music to your ears as our in-house Colts fan. But
Love it.
If there's going to be another Keenan Allen, we've talked about Jack Doyle is going to be the new Hunter Henry or like Antonio Gates. Obviously, not projecting him to be up there, but if he's going to take over that role with Rivers, then if we're looking at who's going to be the next Keenan Allen, it actually seems like Parris Campbell to me over T.Y. Hilton because Campbell's primarily going to be operating out of the slot. There's already some concerns there for T.Y. Hilton. He's already a little nicked up, limiting his practice reps. It's not a bad bet to make here against T.Y. Hilton as a super deep shot wide receiver that's essentially free with your last pick. There could be some massive boom weeks. We could see Parris Campbell be the new plug and play like Zach Pascal, who can fill in for that offense in some weeks if we see some other names go down. Campbell's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Literally, he ran a 4.31 40, 97th percentile or higher in every speed burst type of score under the sun. He had an injury-plagued rookie year, so we really haven't seen a ton from him. But who knows? Maybe he's just great when he's healthy. Kind of seems like this is like all the other when healthy guys we've brought up on the show, like John Ross, even like T.Y. Hilton. But everything we know about this guy is that he's explosive. So I think it's worth to see, shake the can, see if there's any juice left in there on Parris Campbell at the beginning of the season as their last pick in your draft.
I don't mind it one bit. I think Parris Campbell has got a lot of juice. He's a second-round pick last season, and I know it's a little bit different, but the Antonio Gibson hype train this year, this is a really weird comp to make, but like that Antonio Gibson hype train is getting out of control, and it's because of some opportunity in that offense, but it's also because of his versatility as a running back and receiver and his explosiveness and speed and measurables. And I look at Parris Campbell, it's like, no, he's not quite as versatile as like a running back, but Parris Campbell can do it all. He's a gadget type player. And in a better offense than the Washington team, Parris Campbell was higher draft capital. He's also incredibly fast and explosive. The Parris Campbell hype train should be picking up some steam as well, because if you're just going to take a flyer, why not take it on Parris Campbell and see if he develops into the wide receiver 2 or, like you said, maybe wide receiver 1 in Indy if something happens to T.Y. Hilton. Now, Antonio Gibson does have potential to take over as a starting running back, which would be a more valuable role. But both of these guys, you said it best, Stef, even when you brought up Chase Claypool earlier with my James Washington take, this late in drafts, sometimes you just have to look for players that are freak athletes. You want to find guys that can take the ball to the house on any given play and be explosive for you. And if they can get volume to match just how good of a football player they are and how athletic they are, that's how you find that value. So this late in drafts, I don't mind one bit taking shots on super athletic freak athletes. You mentioned it with John Ross as well, and just seeing if you can get some boom potential out of these players. But Steph, speaking of the Washington team, I'm going to go with a guy I've liked for a while now, even dating back to last season. It's Steven Sims.
Nice.
Right now, he's going as ADP wide receiver 82. And he's proven that he can get it done before in this tough, weird, not good Washington team offense. He was the wide receiver 9 over the last 4 games of last season. That's 5 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown per game over that 4-game stretch. And I know it's a very small sample size, but Sims is free in drafts right now. So if you're getting a player that could potentially be a wide receiver, even a wide receiver 3 for your team with some upside, why not take the free shot on Steven Sims? I mean, what has really changed in this offense other than a better head coach, other than hopefully Dwayne Haskins getting a little bit better in year 2? Like, what else has changed in this offense? Really nothing at all. So I think Sims could easily be the number 2 target on this team. I actually have him statted out right now as the number 2 target on this Washington football team. And I think he could get close to 100 targets this season. And who knows, if he gets close to 100 targets, if he's still as dynamic this season as he was last, he could be an extreme value in the slot for this team. And this is all with, last year, Bill Callahan coming in and running the ball play after play after play when they were getting blown out. They were dead last in pass yards a game last season. They were dead last in scoring offense. I don't think this this Washington team's offense is going to, take the top off in 2020. But I think from a passing perspective with Dwayne Haskins, there should at least be more volume. And with Kelvin Harmon going down, and he's going to miss the entire season as another guy who is an outside wide receiver, there could just be more opportunity for Sims. I know they don't play the same position. Sims is more of a slot guy, and Harmon was an outside guy, but they got to funnel these targets to somebody, and they can't all go to Terry McLaurin. So I know there's concern with Antonio Gibson maybe getting some slot snaps and things like that. That hype train's getting out of control. But why not take the post-hype sleeper that everyone's forgetting about in Steven Sims?
Dude, I love it. I like Sims a lot from a – he showed a flash. So you think of like Ron Rivera's going to come in, look at what the team did last season, and I feel like Sims did enough to at least say, hey, I'm worth a shot in this team. I should be the wide receiver 2 on this depth chart behind McLaurin.
He should get snaps.
He played 63% or higher of snaps or higher on snaps the weeks 14 through 17. He saw 9 targets per game. I was actually pretty shocked to see the volume that he was getting, and that's what we like out of these slot guys. We like heavily used slot guys that are uber efficient, and that's essentially what Steven Sims is. So I love the case he made there. Definitely like him. And if, let's say you're a big believer, maybe you're a Washington fan, then, you believe in Dwayne Haskins stepping up. And who knows, maybe that all goes to Sims there as the other option.
This should be a pass-heavy team this season. They should have many more pass-heavy game scripts than they did last season. I mean, they spent more time trailing than any other team in the league except Jacksonville in 2019. But Bill Callahan took over as the interim head coach. I think they were protecting Haskins a little bit. They just ran the ball. Win, lose, down by 30 points, they don't care. They just wanted to run the ball. This season, I think with those game scripts, Ron Rivera is going to be a little bit more competitive and try to get Dwayne Haskins to air the ball out a little more. So the volume for this offense should come up as a whole. And they play Philly week 1, and Philly's secondary was not necessarily great last season. They do bring in Darius Slay. But if Darius Slay is on Terry McLaurin, there could be a lot of opportunity for Steven Sims. Week 1, throw him out there, see what happens. If he produces, great, you might really have something. And if not, again, with all these deep names, you're drafting them, you're seeing what their snaps, their targets, their production looks like over the first week or two, and you're cutting them to find who those guys are going to be this season.
Sims will be a DFS name that I'm sure we're going to be talking about a lot.